Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody here. My name is Paulo Miyada, Art Director of Tomiotaki Institute. I'm going to describe myself. I am an Asian man, a mixed-raced man. I have black hair and black beard. I wear glasses. I wear a white shirt and a dark gray pants and white sneakers. I am extremely excited to be here with you today. As we agreed on, myself, Ana, Isabella, we would introduce the seminar we are holding today little by little. So I'm going to start this session by telling you what is bringing us to this seminar. This is not an opening of a seminar because we've already started the seminar this morning. We had sessions in the morning, sessions in the afternoon. And all those sessions stirred many questions, many desires, and we discussed about many decades and centuries of stories and pathways. So this is a solid, firm stage. Everybody who has been here today will remain with us until the end of the week. So this is a brief introduction to the evening session. I'd like to thank Ana and Isa once again for putting together this seminar, and also I appreciate Thiago de Paula Souza, which are the guest curators of this exhibition. Dayara Tucano also, Mário Chagas, and Mário Pedrosa's platform for organizing specific sessions that we are going to hold throughout the week and debates we are going to have throughout the week. Also, I appreciate the teams at Tomiotaki Institute. I'm going to talk about that later on. But without those teams, we wouldn't be here today. They were the ones who built this arena, who mobilized this arena in the exhibition room. And they were the ones who organized such an extensive schedule. So this work was brought together by many people. Also, I appreciate the sponsors of this seminar. The sponsorships came through the federal government, through the art and culture incentive law, also partnership of Itaú Cultural, the extended partnership from several institutions, researchers, activists, and individuals throughout the country. Then we have Funarte's CEO, Mari Marighella, who has been with us throughout the day. So one of the ways to specify what's happening and playing this institutional role as Instituto Tomiotaki, I'd like to give a testimonial. This seminar is just one step towards many walks of lives. Many people from many walks of lives are here with us today and interacting. And this is one step that we are taking together. The seminar goes back to the past to revisit an idea that was formulated by Mário Pedrosa back in 1978. Back then, a large museum with a large collection in our country was on fire, caught fire. And that museum told the story of its survival and told about the size of the damage but it was reconstructed and now has become a reference and continues to be a reference museum on modern art, which is the Museum of Rio de Janeiro. But back then, as the museum caught on fire, Mário Pedrosa dreamed about the Museum of Origins. And as he dreamed about that, he sort of changed the game for the Brazilian art museums because he dreamed about this museum as a democratic one. So he devised 5 other museums: the Popular Art Museum, the Black People Museum, among others. And he did that. He dreamed about another museum not because he wanted to invent another version of the Brazil's festival, of this melting pot of many people that recognize the importance of many locations, its own collections, their own stories, their own fights, their own sciences and technologies, and communities. All that are key ingredients for devising a museum. Thinking about a museum is not just about creating a narrative, it is about strengthening locations, peoples, networks, knowledge, collections. So that inspired a research that created an exhibition, created a book, and also generated an effect that is still lingering. It's like the Pequeno Príncipe with a quote: you become eternally responsible for things and people that you captivate. Every time we ask somebody, is everything okay in this country? We sort of uncover at least 500 years of history that can tell us that things are not actually okay. People that are part of this network that were mobilized for this project, they talk about that and they act upon that. Because of that, and despite of that, and they mobilize political demands, collective political demands that we are not going to address today or this week. But as an institution, we are encouraged, motivated to continue contributing to that as part of our public mission. To talk about memory policies is also talking about desire. It is also talk about articulation, negotiation of the aspirations that move our communities so that these communities they can reach agreements, they can join the fight towards creating a policy or policies for fostering and preserving memory. So let's start our conference. The first item of our agenda: reparation, restitutions, and life policies. We are going to be joined by Glicéria Tupinambá, and we are going to be joined by Manthia Diawara, who is with us online. Glicéria, over to you. Glicéria, Glicéria needs no introduction, right? Anyway, I'm going to introduce herself. She's an artist, a researcher, a professor, an educator, and activist. She's one of the female leaders of Serra do Padeiro village. She was a professor also in the Tupinambá indigenous land in Bahia. She completed her bachelor degree on indigenous interculturality in Bahia, and she's now taking a master's course in the postgraduate study on social anthropology from UFRJ. She's got experience in education. Together with Cristiane Julião, she directed the documentary film titled The Voice of Indigenous Women. She's been part of several discussions and debates in Brazil and worldwide. She was a curator of an exhibition titled, I'm going to speak in Portuguese, okay? Kiaui, Yapé, Turuçu, Yuriri, Yassojaba, Tupinambá. The comeback of the Tupinambá hymn at Funarte, Brazil. She was the winner of a photography contest, and she has a work to develop together with Mariana and Patricia Cornelius, taking part of an exhibition as well. She was the curator of Manthia Movimento project in 2023 at Casa do Povo in São Paulo. We are going to be there on Friday to wrap up this meeting. And she paid many visits in São Paulo, including an exhibition, essays about the origin of museums or museums for origins. And she also researches museum access projects, and she studies the artifacts of the Tupinambá people. Manthia Diawara from Mali, West Africa. He holds the title of Professor, Distinct University, Professor of the New York University. He writes about art and culture in Africa. Manthia Diawara received several international awards and prizes, including the NAACP Award, Phi Beta Kappa Distinct Scholars, among other awards. He is the founder and editor of Black Renaissance Noir magazine. He also published many books, including In Search of Africa, recently published in Brazil. We Won't Budge, An Exile in the World, and African Cinema, Politics and Culture. His films and installations include Edouard Glissant, A World in Relation, also a dialogue between Soinka and Senghor, Negritude, a new dialogue between Soinka and Senghor. Manthia, thank you so much for having us. Glicéria, we really appreciate having you here. And without further ado, now I'm going to pass the floor to you. The first time I heard Glicéria talking about her journey, which started many generations ago, and she's part of this journey now. We were on an online call that lasted 40 minutes, and once that call was over, the only thing that came to my mind was, if all people in this country heard Glicéria for 40 minutes, we would be having a different conversation about memory in this country. So now we are going to be able to hear from her an updated version on Glicéria's journey for 40 minutes now. Thank you so much.
They are trying to put her in a different spot because the camera, she's not facing the camera, but the way the layout is, her back's gonna be facing someone anyhow. So they're trying to define a best position. So maybe people can sit in one place so she can face everyone. So let's see. They can swap places as well. Oh yes, people are sitting on the other side. That's great. Okay, you see how it's easy to change seats without hurting each other. Chendeptuna, good evening. I'm very happy to see lots of people participating and also those that came here before me. I heard a lot of interesting comments. And would like to invite you not to listen only with your ears and eyes, but try to listen through your skin, trying to feel me and also the vibration that exists through the air, that people feel it, but they cannot translate it somehow. But I think the peoples, the natives from our lands, those that feel the earth and nature, they know that communication doesn't happen only through the speech. It is limiting somehow, and we cannot grasp the size of communication. I'm saying this because I didn't know that when I was going to go into a museum, there was an ancestor waiting for me that would communicate with me and also would share a lot of memories. It was like boiling water, about to boil, and then it starts to boil. That's the feeling, the sensation that I described to you when I saw the mantle for the first time in a museum. And for the people that helped me to get there and access this, because I didn't know my own history. The school denied me and society denied me, and I didn't know what this was about. That ancestor that talked to me, and it's a special ancestor because his energy was very feminine and a remembrance of a very warm place, comforting, which is about my grandmothers. And you know, how is it like for you to visit your godmother and she hugs you and you feel embraced and welcome, and you are a child and you're fascinated because she does things that sounds like magic, looks like magic. My world is different because I was born in a territory. My world was free. I would just fish in the river. I would run through the woods. I would climb trees, and the trees had names of family members. So these fruit tree would feed me, and they had different names of my uncles and so on, and they would feed me and they would look after me. So in this moment, one day, I came across some fences in my own territory. I couldn't go beyond the fence. I could no longer access the river to fish. So this was the moment in my life when I was still a child that I discovered that my territory was no longer a free territory, and all the things in nature that fed me and taught me from that day on, I had to ask for authorization to access the river. And the river was free. It was for everyone to bathe and fish. Forest was for everyone. We understood that something that you sowed, kids could not play with it, but what nature offered, we could share with everyone, because I you don't know the flavor of oichi fruit. It's a fruit that is very sweet, wonderful, and would spend the afternoon on oichi trees, and my mom would tell us stories, scary stories, so we'd go back home before nighttime. So we had to be back home before 6 because we would just spend the entire afternoon in the woods, in the forest. So this place was very magical. Nature was my teacher. When I was walking on my own in the woods, I would see footsteps behind me, and I would be very scared, would run, and our hearts was beating fast, and I would tell Mom, I saw a ghost. What happened? There was someone walking behind me. Don't worry, this is your guardian angel, because you work in silence and start to hear his footsteps because your guardian angel was close to you. I did understand the meaning of that, but now when I was facing this cloak and I understood it, it was like a book that no one read. They examined, they understood how it is, technically speaking. There is a description of that, and it's made of natural fibers. This costume, right? And it's made of some bird feathers that has gone extinct, and it's very precise, the description. And they even mentioned the existence of its lifetime, but there was something beyond the costume. It would bring me memories of people in the territory when I was a child, fiber, kids playing, bird feathers, this myriad of images being displayed before my eyes, and I was fully awake. But they told me that object is an object and there is no communication. Objects cannot communicate. And I could understand what is happening to me. And I would just sight, close my eyes, and I would go back there. And the second image came to my mind, people on the beach. They were next to each other. I could feel sand beneath my feet, and then I would look ahead and I would see the sea and also a boat, and the boat would just disappear. And I would come back because I want to see the feathers of this costume, the colors. And when I looked at the hood of this costume, I saw more fibers, cotton. Another one reminds me of tukun. And I went back to that place that the ship was there in the shipyard, and it was just going down and it disappeared. And I was confused. What's the meaning of that? And then I went back home, and it was difficult for me to understand. And the costume talked to me. It took me a while to understand that that object communicated to me. Maybe someone described that, and I talked to this guy, and he told me about how they would uh, also work with birapema and also the musurana, which is the rope, and well, the same process that happened with the costume. So it is an artifact that is cared by the spirituality. It's not an object, it's not a human, but it is in this place that this spiritual indigenous person could be there and communicate, and only its people could access this dimension, this spiritual dimension. So I understand that costume is also female. How can we prove that? Everything in life needs some evidence. You cannot just say things. And also, uh, the bird bird came, the gavião bird came, and also I went to work on my garden, and there was these birds that came, which is a hawk, Brazilian hawk, and on the other side I see araponga bird singing that metallic song, hitting the wood. And then I saw myself in a meeting, and I wasn't even invited to this meeting, and they told me, I'm talking to you. With me? How come? And I said, okay. I stopped working on the ground and I listened. Let's talk about it then. And they told me, you need to find your gods and goddesses. Tell me more about it, I told them. Why? Because there was this some images about the spiritual leaders and the males and the females, and also there is this dimension in the Tupinambá cosmology that was well recorded so far. So, but I didn't know about that. I had never had access to that. So they told me that your gods were diluted just like sugar and salt, and you put in a glass of water. How can you separate one from another? Looking outside, you can see what is salt, what is sugar, or you can feel it, you can taste it. But in water, how can we see what is sugar, what is salt? And they did that to you, and it's down to you to differentiate one from another and say, okay, I got the message. So I started my search, my pursuit through these fibers and trying to find the shapes. This is crucial. These are shapes, but there is a lot of meaning behind these diamond shapes, you know. The diamond shape fed me and many people because it's in the way we shape in the fishing objects that we use in our costumes. It's there. It's the thread. It's a simple type of thread. It's a cotton thread. And in our schools, I was told that cotton was in the industrial part of the country, and all of a sudden our own people had the technology of cotton, and the industry only made it more sophisticated. But those that had cotton had this technology. They knew that they would be able to have fire to warm themselves, they could fish with it, and they could dress themselves with cotton to not be cold. So we would never walk naked. We had blankets. We had this blanket to protect us. So that's why I could see all these blankets. And in Italy, there are 3 blankets, one in Milan, 2 in Firenze, and there is also um, uh, a coat that warms you up. So it was good to see these memories in these cloaks. So in 2022, I also think there are people in Copenhagen that without the permission and also the education, without this goodwill and good faith, nothing happens. You cannot do things. And my mom taught me to thank, to express gratitude, because we need to have positive and good thoughts. So if you can have positive actions, you thank for it. This is what I want to cultivate in the world: positive energies, positive relationships. So this is what the caution told me: to not create conflicts, to exercise peace. And it's hard to exercise peace. It's much easier for you to fight, to tackle, than just stepping back. And to not engage in conflict means that you are exercising peace at that time, at that moment. It doesn't mean that you didn't do anything, but you did just the necessary to define that. You have to learn. I'm in this learning process. I don't know a lot about everything. So my way is of teaching and learning. Maybe I don't have this maturity right now. When I was younger, I created my own blanket. I sent it to this spiritual leader, and he told me, "You are too young. You have to wait." And it's different, right? Now I can see that there is a time that was necessary for me to be more mature, and I developed this sacred cloak. I understood that it is feminine, so I could share with society to say that society needed to have sacred cloaks back, and it's your duty to talk about it. It's the process. So now it's back to its own territory. And I think there is, since Brazil is indigenous land in the Brazilian territory, has all these different layers, but in its origin, the origin of the native people, understand that we bring this debate, this reflection, when the cloak goes back to the national territory, in this moment of fragility, which is the structure of a museum. Everyone has their own locus of speech, but I'm saying about something that I heard through the cloak, through the costume. It told me that. So the number 21, 2021, if you go back there, you see how uh, they think the garments will be in Europe. For me, the expansion of the territory from the New World to the Old World, I occupied the New World, and there they have this evidence that the garment is something that needs to be fulfilled. I had this bad thought about being something that is disgraceful, or it's like a curse. But I have to rethink about it. This is the moment that the indigenous peoples are suffering a major defeat because they are creating laws to take the territory from us. And also, they are trying to approve this bill and to redefine the size of our territory. So there is a challenge. And this manto, this garment, is 400 years old. So there is something wrong with this demarcation of indigenous lands. And it goes to a museum, and we wrote a letter. We hear the spirituals, the spirits, sorry, it's not, they are not humans. They never were humans that died. The spirits, the enchanted, started with the creation of mankind. So Caipora, have you ever seen a Caipora? Caipora was born from who? He turned what? No, it came when humankind was created to look after this place. We understand that the forests and the mountains, and especially the mountains, that's where the spirits live. When it's too dangerous, Kaipora opens up the forest and saves the animals. So after these violent moments, they can then open the stone and come out of the stone. We, when we child, would listen to the stones. We would listen to the animals inside the stones. Mom would say it was gold. They would call it gold for us. So we had this place of this land of the enchanted spirits. And when we see that these are portals of the enchanted spirits that are disappearing, it's much more severe and acute. And so it's a difficult place if they are destroying the forests and the mountains. How we can defend our rights, our resistance, coming from a place that is using the rational aspect and not being too emotional. You have to be sober without anger and hatred. You have to think straight, coming from a place that is sensible and using the other's language. My grandfather said that we have to understand and study the white man's culture so they won't take our lands. So they won't stole our land. So I'm studying in university to understand this place that I didn't have the opportunity to be at. And then the month of the garment told me it took a lot. You are 400 years old. I'm only 40. So come on, don't be too harsh on me. And he sees me as a member of its family. And this is quite strong because it plays with the emotions that are deep down us, and the you are in a difficult game, you are playing a different game in a different game board of the white man, and I don't think I know how to play this game well because there are different narratives. I didn't know about the dispute of narratives and how bad they were, how evil this was. There is a narrative of indigenous peoples of, and I was reading about it, and I came many mentions about various indigenous peoples being taken to Europe as ambassadors to discuss with the kings and queens. In some moments, the presentation to the kings and queens, and some of them never came back from these journeys. And I came across a lot of literature about it. And there is another story that was never told. There is this universal story. And people, they are not even proud to be indigenous. When we were organizing our survey to recognize our own territory, went through a lot of questions. It's not a convention that gives you the right to self-declare indigenous. The land, they they had some pottery to say that my people was Tupi and they belonged to that land. And we fought a lot, and there were many registrations, many records, many objects with people, so we could prove our existence in that land because of this pottery that was found. So I know a lot about it. I know about my own history from this place, but the size of what was done to the territory, and that Tupi comes from Sao Paulo and goes down the south, going also to the northeast, and the go to the Amazon region in Paraguay. I didn't know about this dimension that we were everywhere, and through these objects, and also I could see the size of our presence in this land. It's a very complex society. They never studied it properly. So I started to understand about the intelligence of my own people to remain alive. So this is the anthropophagic ritual that people don't understand. It's not very deep. It's kind of shallow. So we have the judiciary system where they take decisions about the lives of people. And Tupinambá would grab an enemy, bring it home. They would marry a wife. They would have kids. They would work in the community until they would understand the culture. And 7 years, and then on that day, they would have a party. Everyone understands that women, they would kill women, and the kids would die as well. They would be killed. And I learned Caipira. Caipira was a prisoner of a Tupinambá, and he was from the Tabajara ethnic group, and they would take to the ambassadors in France to talk to the kings and queen. So it's wrong, this other thought, this other version that people defined, saying that Tupinambá had to kill everyone. In fact, was not true. If Caipira is in this registration, was baptized in France, he died in France, he was about 60 years old, how come he was alive? How come Tupinambá people didn't kill him? And he died there in France, and he was one of these person that was translators. We had translators that would speak different languages and would try to establish these relationships. So I came across so many things after I saw the garment, and it led me to different places, and I thought to myself, I have to understand this other place more, which is not this place that is here for everyone, that it's very shallow, which is the theft, but also to understand the different intelligence and negotiations that took place, because there had been alliances between indigenous people and non-indigenous people so they could survive. So I want to tell to the people of Africa that we we do not enslave our yourselves, or and when everyone would leave Senzala, it was never empty, and they would take to the indigenous land and would leave indigenous people and would leave you. This was the moment that you could organize yourselves in quilombos. So it's the second bishop. So there is a relationship of struggle and partnership to survive between the black people and indigenous people. They never told this story. And the black people don't know the indigenous story. It's very fragmented. Indigenous people, they don't know the other side of the story because the indigenous story told by the books or by the literature is literature that is very romantic. They don't mention real facts, all the battles that happened. So I start to investigate that through the mantle, which is feminine, and the women would dress this costume and they would use it in rituals. So to find these people that still do these rituals was the best finding. It was the excavation that I did in my life, and also, of course, I plant potatoes and excavate potatoes. I could find in Palais de Versailles a woman with this Tupinambá outfit, and in other moments and in different colonizations there are registrations, records that led to these women that wear this mantle. And there is a woman in the France Atlantic, and historian told me that women were there randomly. That wouldn't make sense. I told them, no, there is a meaning because in one hand there is a cross, on the other hand there is a shaker. So it makes sense for her to be there. And they try to also not make this woman visible. And the cloak is here to tell this place of this woman in this culture. So I keep myself bringing these memories from the past to the present moment so we could work the present moment to think of the future, to project the future. Because according to the cloak or this outfit, the man time has a dead end. And for the indigenous people, our time is infinite, is endless, and we dress this way of thinking. It's in us, in the things that we do, in the way we paint, the way we draw. So this time is ingrained in us and it's endless, but people choose a different end for their own lives, but it's not the time that we wish to have. But we are, I'm sorry, it's a moment for you to drink water and rest because some people will fight because there are different choices, and there are some people that are walking to the end, towards the end. Well, good luck. I hope you have a wonderful end, but I think that there are many things for us to find, especially in the museums, because the cloak told me that I need to rescue and find my uh, ancestry that are found in these museums. These are women, children, heads, and I went there to try to find the meaning of that, and I found this curiosity room in museums with many exhibitions, and I didn't know what this was about. No one told me what this was about. But after the cloak told me, many things started to arrive to me. And I came across this story that six indigenous people in the south region of Bahia that were killed by the colonizers. And these indigenous people, had their heads cut, and a doctor that bought these heads. These heads today, you can see them in the museum in Sweden, and recently it's no longer in exhibition. If the cloak never told me that, I wouldn't believe it, but I could see that written in a document. So I'm close to something that I don't know what it is, but the museums inherited that and they keep that. I need to have access to the collection to find them sooner or later. We could have this dialogue to define. I'm not asking things back. I listen to the cloak, to the spirit. If they tell me it's gonna come, I listen to all of them, all these garments, and I thanked everyone because they have looked after my ancestry very well, especially the Milan cloak. Only women looked after it, so it was beautiful because it has this feminine energy, and women looked after it. So it's the energy is still preserved, the feminine energy, and I think this was very respectful. And now the way it is displayed, it has it receives the sunlight and also the light from the moon, and I thought it was very respectful. People might think that it's bad, but understood, listen to that energy, that it was well. It wasn't scared to leave that place. No, it understood that it had a mission, communication, something to do. So I understand that they have that, and I try to see the mission that is a bit beyond. You have to find these people. So in Italy, 6 indigenous people were taking their heads. In the Netherlands, 11 indigenous people were taking that. In France, 9.
So where are they? I respect Egypt. What happened to Egypt was bad. It violated the place of people that are in eternal sleep, the mummies. The mummies. They have their documents in their passports in several countries, and they need to be sent back to their original countries. How are these citizens being treated? What about my people that were taken from this territory? I exist. I am a Tupinambá person. Then there's the Guarani people that live in São Paulo. Many people were taken from this territory. And why don't people give us the right to answer? Why don't they open that museum and allow us to meet them? These people must come back because they weren't taken to stay there. They are not citizens of those countries where they are. They've always wanted to come back to their original country. And this is my request. This is the memory I have about the cloak and of the last days that I took part in some ceremonies. I did not take part in the original ceremony, but I asked for a second ceremony, a separate one. It was a hard work, but I was able to conduct this ritual with my mom, with my niece. And you know what the cloak asked? Peace. Asked me not to engage in conflict. So I did not attend that event in face of the authorities to avoid conflict. That was why. But they had chosen to for a narrative. They did not want to engage with the indigenous people that were there to negotiate the existence of that people. That story was denied, was erased, deleted, but I wanted to tie the knot again. Again, this is what I had for you, and I am open for any comments. If you'd like to uh, make comments afterwards, I'm all ears. Thank you so much, Glicéria. I can't wait to ask questions. I believe some people have many questions for you as well. But let's, set out the background for this conversation. I've already introduced Manthia Diawara. I don't know how the translation came across in a different language from a different area, but Manthia has been summoned to take part in discussions on repatriation and restitution of objects, collections, African objects and collections from Europe. And he's been taking part in those conversations based on his intellectual experience, his personal experience. So he may add more ingredients to this conversation. Just a reminder, if you need translation or if you like to hear the translation in Portuguese, you can go outside and pick up your devices. Thank you, Manthia, for being here with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Manthia. We're going to have time for questions, and I'll start uh, maybe using Manthia's words to ask a question, Glicéria. He mentioned about the importance of, or together with the being, and also uh, turning to, and you also reminded us of a life that starts with education on the land, that intensifies in this fight to have the right to have your own land. And he also talks about encounters of beings that are more than humans, and that led you to start a research in your territory with your people and outside it, in these books and the history. That also there was a moment that you mentioned in 2021 that you were concentrated in reconstituted the ability to do the sacred cloaks, and uh, and also the cloaks to be about stay in Europe, and also and in the agencies, and we also have the cloak that was in Denmark, and also it's now in the National Museum in Rio. And also about the being and becoming. And I ask you to go a bit deeper in this attention to the current moment, to the present moment. What do you see and imagine for what's going to be the diplomatic life of ambassador, and also the impact of this sacred cloak that comes back, and also the other cloaks that are being done here by your people? Oh my God. So I'm grieving because I invested a lot of energy. I participated in three main meetings to receive the sacred cloak, and I crossed the Atlantic Ocean. I listened to the five cloaks that were available, and also 11 belts, all of them using feathers, made of feathers. People were very respectful. They listened to me, listened what was happening with the cloaks. They were people and families that crossed the ocean. They never returned. And also, there are some items that lived in, they had lives in rituals, and they still have a life, and they communicate. And then this sacred cloak says that it needs to come back. And I said, it was easy to leave it there, it was much easier, but it needed to come back. Prepare your home, find a place, a home. It's hard to find it. My territory involves 23 communities, 14 spiritual leaders, and they have different ways of thinking, so you cannot organize the thinking. Inside my village, we have 220 families and one spiritual leader. And we are the people from the lives in the forest. There are communities that live on the coast, and we disagree between ourselves from one village to another. So these are family members, and maybe you can get by and somehow find some balance. But there are some other issues that it's hard to agree, but we prefer not to talk about it. But if you have to talk about it, it's very complex, not simple. So, so based on my mom's wisdom, the your intestines fight a lot, or what is inside intestine fight a lot. Imagine us human beings. What if imagine the people that are outside the territory and they start to help some leaders and it's hard to listen. The more we fight, there is a moment that we listen, stop and listen to the other. It's sad when this doesn't happen. There is a moment that the intestines are full and they stop fighting. So it was hard because they were in this place of dispute and trying to convince people based on their own narratives. And I couldn't define who's going to present the narrative. It was the violence, the theft. That wasn't the reason why the cloak came. The cloak came through a letter that the enchanted spirit asked for, signed by the spiritual leader of my own territory and sent through the National Museum. And also in this letter, they mentioned sending someone to listen, and that's how we did it. So the cloak listened, they replied to the letter, and the letter went to where? Their request was the donation to a museum, because museum had seen the transformation through the fire, so everything could modify and change. The fire has this role. People are scared of fire. I'm not scared of fire because there is a place to transform. It's painful, it's hard, but fire does its work. So there is this possibility to, we were organizing a collection, do it, and the answer comes to donate to a museum. It's different for people to understand it because the human desire is to go back to a specific territory. But our territory is long. We are fighting for a territory of a life that is our own, so we can continue with our own way of living, teaching our kids. There is a thought in our community we want to preserve, but people think that it's interesting to send the cloak to the community and open to tourists. People want to go there and see it. And the territory is not demarcated yet. Indigenous lands, even those that are demarcated, they are invaded. It's not safe, like a museum is not safe. But the sacred cloak needs specific physical care. This one is 400 years old. If you go to indigenous village, it won't last a few days. The feather that you pick from a bird after rain and wind, and after 8 days, it washes away. My father received received a shoes as a gift, and it was brand new, and he kept it away. When he put his feet on the shoes, it just vanished somehow. But the cloak needs to have this proper care, and people study it to preserve it. These weren't the people that stole it. These are the people that dedicated their lifetime. They studied to be able to preserve a feather, how to preserve feathers. Imagine these people that dedicate their time, their lives to study something that is very precious, to use technology to preserve something that is important for my time and for future times. And fight against all this knowledge based on research that I did to go to this place. It wasn't a place of violence, but a place of allowing a dialogue and being diplomatic and sitting around the table to talk about it because it's hard. And then I couldn't be understood, and people, they just want to listen to what was happening in the emotions, the place of hatred and anger, the first emotion. And it's present in Brazil and abroad. People, they want to be in this place of hatred. I couldn't. My community couldn't. The enchanted spirit couldn't do it to overcome this barrier. The people keep themselves behind these walls of hate. It's hard to forgive. We forgive, but we don't forget. So, to exercise Everyone asks for peace, but we cannot exercise peace. It's easier to be aggressive and say aggressive words. It's much easier to communicate like that rather than establishing peaceful relationships. So we have seen many obstacles, and I was no longer in this negotiation with the cloak, and other people um, was involved, and then sent it to this place. And I don't know what's going to be this relationship with the cloak, because I was there to look after it, because I can listen to the sacred cloak. It recognized him, the outfit, this ancestry, this family member recognize me, sees me, and it's a communication that is not human. And is it wrong to be in a museum? I wanted to be in a place of praying. They wanted, but was my possibility, the chance that we had, what to do with this responsibility. And then it's very easy for you to sit in a comfortable place and offer your opinion. It's very easy to experience the grief that I experienced, the feeling that you had of being stolen. I felt that, but I forgave because I allowed it to happen. Because everyone can feel the feelings that you have inside of you. If I would deny that, and also people can shout something that is there in them, they would accept my opinion, but you won't heal that inside themselves. So I think this moment, the audience, the people feeling, realize, I think it's a healing that is happening. There is this possibility for all the narratives to coexist. One doesn't mean that the other doesn't cannot exist. We can learn through different ways. My perspective can exist, and people can have different exists, but I still prefer the possibility of talking about it. Everyone made a mistake, but we can get it right from now on. We can talk about it. I'm here inside a museum to talk about memories, and it's memories that is a very intimate part of my family, my territory, and I'm sharing that with you all because this space was then opened. It's possible to happen. So the sacred cloak allowed that to happen. When the sacred was taken to different villages, it came here, and it allowed possible dialogues, and people understood that this cloak was done in the territory and presented in its own territory, and also it defined dialogues and talk about this place of the woman, the feminine energy. People don't think that it's not necessary, but it is. It's simple. Maybe it's not that complex. It's a gesture. And I understand that this is the right approach. I cannot say it in a different way because the sacred cloak took all the pride that I had. I was angry. I would just, fight a lot with people. And they taught me a lot, and they taught me a different place because people think that as if death was the end, and it's not. It's not the end.
Your testimonial makes us think. This is not the end. This cloak with others recomposed. They're going to be in an agency, and that museum is not going to be the same. As we build the future of that territory. Any questions? Hello, good evening. I'm going to describe myself. My name is Diawara Tucano. I am an indigenous woman. I'm wearing denim pants, sneakers, and on Palestine scarf. I'd like to give my testimonial too. I am currently the National Culture Counselor at NIMP, and I also work with the repatriation within the Indigenous Peoples Ministry. And I share the same thought introduced by Professor Mancha. I forgot your name, Mancha. That memory is a feeling. I had a similar experience when I visited the Indigenous Museum for the first time, and I saw the necklaces of my people, and I was filled by an avalanche of emotions. And I told a relative, and I said, memories, feeling equals feelings. And to me, memory houses, which are museums, are places that we go to share those feelings. There are so many layers, there are so many dimensions involving the word reparation. And I wonder whether historical reconciliation is ever possible. I work with human rights. Within human rights, I believe it's possible. I feel like throwing people out of the fifth floor, not the second floor, because if one thing is a fact, facts are facts, but we need to build dialogues that will enable us to share feelings feelings about those vivid, rich memories, but also share bad feelings so we can call people to take responsibility. So I have a question for both of you. Over the past few years, we've been discussing those attempts to transform museums, to decolonize. Is it possible to decolonize those institutions that are colonial by nature? And how do we make it a reparation dialogue and get those museums to start sharing responsibility towards all society members or all groups of society? I have a question for you, Glicéria. What's left in the European Museum? Are they going to continue telling that story? They, the cloak is removed, but are they guilt free now? Are they sending you back that garment and now they're guilt free? Those pieces were taken to the area through a system that was a traffic system. There are many layers to that story, starting with kings and queens that are wearing those cloaks they robbed. There are pictures, there are racist, but they are still there. So there are many possibilities for us to create a new narrative. You know, the Museum of Origins, the Museum of the Future. So are we willing to bring our territories up to sky, or bring it up to the clouds, put it at the center? So how do we share this feeling of loss in a way that it can further create wisdom and responsibilities in new generations? As indigenous people, this is the movement we are making in order to survive, in order to keep ourselves alive. And our best wisdom is being able to fight to be alive, to remain alive. But we also want those that have been killing us for centuries to start learning and stop killing us. Thank you. Good afternoon. I feel represented by Mancha's words. There are some aspects, since we are talking about understanding the Museum of Origins. But I also thought about Mancha's and Glicéria's words and narrative. And I believe that we need to think about memories as possibilities for reorganizing society. When I hear Glicéria talking about historical processes, about the stories that were told in her community, and that those stories in some way instilled fear in that community, and that established a fearful relationship, sort of a controlling relationship in that territory. I ask myself, what does the deorganization of the black people in the Brazilian territory mean? I left Salvador, and within 1 year, I came across 3 or 4 mass killing of black people. So I think about blood spilling. There's a narrative about blood as a red element, and blood is being spilled in the communities, in the favelas. There are many black young people killed every day. And this process of killing young black people in Rio de Janeiro somehow reverberates in society as a whole. So those communities are being killed. Blood is being spilled. Now, I want to talk about memory of stories. When we learn about these things in university, the Brazilian state turns those historical memories into folklore. The caipora, for example, Saci Pererê, and other folklore stories that we are told in schools in Brazil that were just turned into folklore. So these stories were turned into folklore. When I hear Glicéria's words, it also brings me back to my family. In my family, those stories, those narratives, they were memories. They had a value. So we need to think about how to mediate that. And we need to understand what sort of reparation, historical reparation, we are seeking. And also, we need to understand how memory can play a role in climate justice. Today, we talked about global warming, about this gray dust is hovering over the São Paulo state. So those memories, they should have specific political projects to contribute to this global warming movement or climate change movement. But this move in which we think about historical narratives and memories, we need to make this movement that Manthia pointed to. And what is this movement? Repatriation, historical reparation. These days, I heard someone saying that an African asked how we Brazilians are going to teach African story in our schools, history in our schools. There's a law that was passed 21 years ago, and this law is not put into effect in the Brazilian state. and it's not put into effect because there's misaligned between what we think, what we say, and what we feel. So there must be confluence around memories. This confluence must consider the existence of every ethnical group that forms the Brazilian nation. This movement is urgent. It is urgent in order to safeguard our existence. Yeah, you might think that we are infinite in this process. However, we need to implement our standpoint. We need to define our standpoints. Thank you. Two broad provocations, right? We won't have enough time, so we might hear someone else saying something, or we might, get one more question or comment, and then we will pass the floor to Glicéria and Manthia. Glicéria, I appreciate, first of all, your existence. Your words resonate with me. Manthia's words resonate with me as well. They speak to me. I recently discovered so many things. It is power to hear Manthia talking about memories that were taken from us. When you talk about the cloak, at some extent, this is what we are experiencing with our steel flag in Ouro Preto. That steel flag was created and refound by our captain in Mozambique back in 2019. And that flag is a subject of dispute. Where is it going to be kept? Because at the headquarters, we don't have the means to keep that flag. Should we take it to a museum? It might be ideal, but we would be taking the opportunity of keeping it as a sacred object, as it is. Our ancestors kept that right alive as a with a meaning, which is to resistance. Your words, they come across a certain way. It is hard to continue resisting. Sometimes you want to give up. But then you come up and you appear to tell us that we are in this together. Let's keep fighting. Let's keep resisting. So I appreciate that. The meaning of bringing the cloak back. I also am part of a community in the northern part of Minas Gerais. I have indigenous roots. And today, I cannot see myself anywhere if I don't feel that I am being represented as an indigenous person. So I appreciate you for what you represent, for the movement that you are making. It is all about being able to hear the voice of your ancestors, of the spirits, and that's what we are trying to do with our flag. We want to hear from our flag. And we need to keep this object. It's not just an object, it is an entity, it is a being, it is sacred. So I appreciate you for doing this movement on behalf of Ouro Preto, on behalf of Minas Gerais, on behalf of the Brazilian people that, just like myself, we are rooted in Africa and we need to keep that root alive. Manthia? some comments were made, some considerations were made. Now you can touch upon the topics that resonated with you and then make your final considerations so we can wrap up this conversation.
Thank you very much, Manthia. Glicéria, your turn. A round of applause to you, sir. Everyone is clapping. I think I'll talk about a place to see if you can understand where I'm coming from. I was 27 years old, and I had gone to Brasilia with my baby boy. He was 2 months old. I took a picture with the President Lula. The following day, I took a plane and I landed in Ilhéus, and the federal police was that took me to the police station, and they told me that I was in prison. They took me to the prison, and also in my own territory, they had kidnapped 1 a.m. the spiritual leader, and the spiritual leader was with his son in his house, and the police put the gun on the head of the child who was 2 years old, so the indigenous leader could say yes to go to the prison. He was taken to the prison in Salvador and then to Mosoro. Me, I was there. Many things happened. I got sick. I couldn't breastfeed my son, and I couldn't tell my family. And also the other female inmates organized and brought food to my son. And people took me to take to the doctor, handcuffed and put in the police car. And I said, oh my God, I was feeling a lot of pain. And many people with guns took to the doctor's office. He didn't even see me, but he prescribed Gipiron, a painkiller, and another injection. And they took me home, took me back to the prison. He didn't solve the problem. The following day, the same process. The third day, the same thing as well. And a lot of antibiotics, and didn't solve a problem. And I slept. I gave my son to the women because I couldn't look after my son, and I fainted for an instant or for a minute. And then my mom was on the wall of the prison, and she was the one who helped me to raise my son. And I said, Mom, I'm suffering a lot, I told her. He said, oh my daughter, I know if you were at home, I could look after you because I was still after the birth. But I'll take something that you drink and you heal. And from the prison wall, she throws it, and I drank that liquid, the medicine. And then I woke up with pain. And then when I could see it was 7 tumors, and they burst. And the female inmates look after me and look after my son. And also they organized themselves to take me to the hospital. These were the people that looked after me. And also in this place that it feels like there was no life, there was a child 1 year and 2 months old called João Vitor. For the first time he saw the sky. For the first time he danced to the sky, and no one had introduced him to the sky, not even the stars. But he would jump to get the stars. He would try to grab the stars with his arms, and everyone that he would tell to see the stars, they would say, what a silly boy. He doesn't know what the sky is. He never saw the stars. The sky is public, right? Isn't the sky for everyone to see? So I learned that place that the sky wasn't for everyone. I learned that the doors that you open wouldn't open because of our will, but because of other people's will. So I ask you, when you open your door to leave your home, feel the sky, see the sky, feel the breeze, eat, thank people, look inside people's eyes, because this is what I learned in the prison, in this place. And also when I saw the sacred cloak, the cloak shared with me how it was feeling away from its relatives. He put together all these feelings and presented them to me to express itself to me. And then I had to learn to see, read the books without feeling anger, and to see how my people managed to write their stories and leave some footprints behind. So when I look at this woodcut work and describes a man with long beard, but there is a child taking a feather to that woman that is best breastfeeding a boy with this uh, cloak, and a child sending a feather. It was the same gesture that my son, when he was 2 years old, got a feather and told me if that cloak that I was uh, making would heal the world. So there is a story that's the hummingbird tried to put out a fire, and on the judgment day, he said that it tried hard. I know there is this place of the theft that is painful. It did happen, but for me to see the entire colonial scenario, when I see the sacred cloak, and I call it a cloak that I call it Diogo. It is from Switzerland. It's in Switzerland, in Basileia. And why Diogo? Because here in São Paulo, we had many indigenous people in the many people study in this. They were sent to Europe as a student, and they started university there. No one mentions that, but there is an enrollment of this indigenous person that starts studying in the university, and this person was never mentioned about the José de Anchieta work. This person spent 10 years there, and he was considered poor. It was only Diogo that was there, and they said that he was indigenous. He was an indigenous person. Many schools, many colleges, and these students were taken to where? Have you ever thought about it? They studied in these Jesuit schools, and they were taken to these other countries. This other cloak with masculine energy shared this aspect of the Jesuit colonization, but it's on the hands of the Swiss people. I thought of this German person, and when I see that image of Sophie wearing the Tupinambá cloak, Mauricio Genassau that gave to her as a gift, and he took it from the Brazilian territory, and the European took ownership of that. But she registered this cloak saying that it was precious. And this image takes me to the Queen Elizabeth, that would be the heir of this cloak, a English colonization in Brazil. So when I see the French cloak, I see the French alliance. Of course, the 7 indigenous ambassadors that went there, and there was a party in this city, and they took 50 indigenous people to play the role of this battle between Tupinambás and Tabajaras. I'm trying to see it from a place that I don't know these people. Why they never told me these stories. When I these saw these drawings, and I see a turtle shield. What do you mean? It's not. Yes, the Tupinambás would fight with this turtle. Uh, they use the back of the turtle, turtle shell, as a shield. So when I went to Italy, and when I dressed the cloak of my territory, my godmother asked me, when you visit your ancestry, dress it for it. That's how I did it. I did what I could do. I dressed my red cloak, which was the color of the territory, the feminine one, and I introduced myself, present myself to this ancestor. And it was beautiful because it wasn't a performance. Maybe the other one outside would see as a performance because, cynically speaking, it was impressive. The atmosphere changed and we greeted each other. I would never had this possibility if I would look from this kind of perspective. And I started to understand every single detail. I got to a place that these sacred cloaks belonged to the Medici family. They were bankers and they funded a colonization here in São Paulo. I forgot the name of the country. There is a term from Guyana, and they brought 6 indigenous people, and the person that took it there died, and he couldn't fulfill the promise to return them, and they were dressing the outfits. They never came back, and the outfit remained there. How? What if I? How could I see that if I was coming from this different perspective? I'm a friend of this writer is to teach ourselves to see this different outlook. And it's there for people to see it from a different way. When I went to Palais de Versailles and I saw the body of a woman, the person questioned, it's a white person, someone said, but it's a Greek. But it doesn't change the fact that she's a woman. Does it change that it is the Tupinambá cloak that is in Copenhagen? Two factors that I could dismiss, but I said, no, it's real. It's a woman, could be a man, but it's a woman. And also the place that it is in the Apollo's Hall, which is the King's Hall, in the place of power, extreme power. So how we're going to understand these places? How we are going to be able to establish connections, understand that, and in order for wars to stop, you have these alliances. The moments that indigenous people married white people, this was the way for the society to coexist, to have these marriages between different ethnic groups. So this is the moment that they will use their costumes and they will kill the society from within. That's why it's so perverse. I understand that the black movement, for example, is different from the Quilombola movement. There are two different contexts. The black movement is about education, have some uh, space in society, but my people, they belong to the territory. We couldn't survive in cities. We want to be able to have different things, but this place that we are fighting to demarcate, to safeguard it, to have a place to share knowledge and also share knowledge about the cloak. When it returns back, it's all about dressing it, and the spiritual leader in our village will dress it, and a woman can be also a spiritual leader and dress it, and the rituals can take place. And then I could find an okara, which is this board where we could have dialogues and much more. So I cannot have a limiting perspective. I'm not living in utopic or she's naive. I have to understand how my people, Ethiopia, sorry, and my people had the technology of the spirituality and cannot be diluted. You can't ignore. I spent 8 months listening to a flute play in my ear, and I'll tell everyone. People would say that flutes of the Tupinambás never existed, and I told them, yes, they exist because it's a bone flute and it's human. So when I stepped in Copenhagen, the first thing that I told to Miriam Gabriel said, there is a flute and it's playing my ear, and it's in here, and it's from the bones of an enemy. And I told her I was about to go mad. I was in the limit of being crazy. Say, calm down, take a deep breath. Yes, this flute exists, but I cannot take it to it. But there is a, can I show you a photo? Yes, no problem. And then she introduced me this catalog, and I could present it to the other people that would say that this flute never existed. The bone, the flute bone of sorry, the flute of an enemy bones. And also, there is another pendant with a cross, and they told us that when we saw the cross, everyone curved in front of the cross. And we had this cross in the sky. We would read the stars. For us, there was a fixed way, which is the map, which is the sky. So we were a very complex people. I didn't say anything.
So we are complex. We have so much spiritual technology that people can interact with. People in the spiritual terraces, they understand that. But usually the spiritual things are humanized. I might not have answered the questions you asked, but my heart is telling me to disseminate a message. I am finding myself based on my oppressor's imprint of myself, but I want to sit down with my oppressor, sit down with my enemy, and share a meal. If the meal is poisoned, we'll both die. If not, we'll both survive. And that can be simple, but we have to sit in the same table. One scream from one side, the other scream from the other side. If that happens, we won't get what each other is saying. But if we sit down at a table, we will sort it out. I found myself in a different place. Research took me to a different place. So we have technology to ensure the existence of our people, the survival of our people. If it weren't for the people in the Northeast holding up that fight, we wouldn't be here today. So there's a story that has been told but not disseminated yet. But we need to find this story, understand this story, so we can build this new world. We need a possible world. Let's establish possible worlds. Let's take up a commitment. Just like all lives matter, we should not keep on making mistakes as people did in the past. We might have our different points of view and we might be different, yet we must talk, we must interact. Thank you so much, Manthia, Glicéria. We couldn't have wrapped up our first day of our seminar in a better note. I really appreciate all of you for being here with us throughout the day. We appreciate the teams that are going to clean the room and organize the room for us to start our day tomorrow again. Let's keep sewing that cloak. Mancha. Mancha, segura um pouquinho aí pra gente poder bater uma foto. Eu sei que você tá distante, mas a gente só vai bater uma foto. Fique conosco. Hold on, Manthia. We're going to take a picture. Stay with us because we're going to take a picture.